Welcome to a one-of-a-kind podcast series brought to you by Maxim Institute, Maximise Election 23. We are here every week to dive into the latest news, discussing the plain and the fancy articles while bringing you insightful analysis of the various events across our country. We also present the Generally Good Egg Award and share our expectations for the following week. Today, Communications Manager Jason Heale is joined by researcher Maryanne Spurdle and Director of Research and Development Marcus Roberts. Let's dive right into Maximise Election 23. Maryanne and Marcus, welcome to the Maximise 23 Election Podcast. Great to have you with me.
Hi.
Excellent. We're going to talk about our plain topic this week, education announcements, literacy and numeracy. Marcus, what's your take on that?
So both of those are good things, literacy and numeracy. Great. That's my take on it. Yeah. So one of the some of the news that came by in the last week is, again, evidence of how poorly our education system is declining. So we've got reports about the percentage of leavers with the various levels of NCEA. So level 1's the lowest, the old school C, level 2, sixth form, level 3, the old bursary. Level 1 has declined 3% in 2022, and it has declined 5% since 2017, start of the Labour-led government. And of course, for Māori school leavers, the decrease is more. It's 3.5%. 27% of all Māori students are leaving school without NCEA level 1.
Wow.
And it goes through the pretty bad. So level 3, we decreased by 4.5%. So it's just another example of how the education system is not performing well.
Yeah.
Which is why we're sort of looking at it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
No, there's good reason to.
Yes.
And the frustrating thing is that we're seeing policies that are just reactionary, take away the phones. You've got the Labour Party saying, we're going to mandate teaching literacy and numeracy, and, it's not a bad idea. The trouble is, why was that taken out of the 2007 curriculum? Why do we have a curriculum that doesn't have a base level for these things?
Yeah.
Why aren't teachers in teachers training being schooled in the most effective ways of teaching those things? They're not. So instead of one of the parties going, look, these are the fundamental problems that are leading to this, you've got a government mandating the way that principals are allowing students to have phones or not, and mandating the way they're teaching literacy. And you've even got, this was fascinating, you've got the Post-Primary Teachers Association acting president, Chris Abercrombie, against it. He says, it is very unusual to be told how to teach something. So people in teaching are like, hang on a minute, that's not how we want to fix this problem. But it's political.
And it seemed like the reaction, the reaction I had with this policy coming up from Labour was, firstly, are we not requiring the teaching of those things? And secondly, you had the teachers union coming out and saying we're going to have to be retrained. I was thinking, how can you be a teacher and not know how to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic?
Yeah.
Well, for the last 20 years, you can. And they've just now noticed there's a problem.
When the teachers can't teach, the students don't learn, right? And then we get where we are now. People can't get level 1 NCEA.
Do you think politically this is a vote winner? Do you think that it's going to move the dial at all for the government, the Labour Party? Do you think that people care about education enough? We do. But
we certainly do. I certainly do, but I don't think it's a winner in terms of policy. I don't think it's going to win people's votes. I think people will just go, yes, you should be teaching literacy and numeracy. Like, this is a big deal.
Yeah. I think it sounds good.
Yeah.
And I think it could move the dial on the ground and making certain things better, but there are better ways of going about it. So it's not just the most effective. I think some people will go, they are serious about education. But then if you ask a few more questions, you'll realize this is not what they should be doing.
And I think they've got the problem, don't they, that one of the other responses is, why haven't you done anything for the last 6 years? Which is always the problem when they start to recognise a problem, is the obvious
at the end of their term.
Because these results for NCEA, this is not the first time it's trended this way. No. This is just an ongoing thing. So why now? There's an election.
There's an election. Which
is
why we're doing the podcast.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Why now?
And so moving on to the fancy, we have the Coalition of Fear The instability and chaos mongerer himself, Winston Peters. Yeah, the refusal of Chris Hipkins comes out and says, we will not work with New Zealand First. And Winston Peters responds, well, it's taken him a year and a half to read my speech back to me. So, Maryanne, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to pull up the thoughts of a wise man who I heard this morning say the reason that you've got this coming out now, oh no, we won't work with New Zealand First, is to put it back on Chris Luxon to say, oh, well, are you going to rule him out? Mm-hmm. And that's really the only explanation that makes sense to me.
Yeah. So it's a political maneuver to say we want to put pressure on someone else.
Yeah.
To say we're not.
Ask the other parties this question too.
Yeah.
Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
So you got what? So the Coalition of Fear, was it?
Yeah, the Coalition of Fear.
Okay, and they're versing the Coalition of Chaos.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which again is showing that actually the bloating of the spin doctors in Wellington is actually bearing fruit, because they sound way cooler than the actual reality.
Yeah.
I'd watch that.
Sounds
movie.
like a 1970s political thriller movie, doesn't it?
Oh,
like a Watergate scandal or something like that.
Sounds really cool, but unfortunately the reality is a bit more prosaic. So I think that this does seem a little bit futile, that when Chris Hipkins has said he's not going to work with Winston Peters. How long since Winston Peters said he's not going to work with Labour? 6 months?
Yeah, at least.
So this is a bit like, well, I didn't even want you at my party anyway. I'm the person who says he doesn't want to come. Yeah. What is do we believe any of this ruling out beforehand?
That's a question, right? Yeah.
Do voters actually think, actually, once the votes are in, all bets are off?
Yeah.
Do we believe Winston Peters? Do we believe Chris Hipkins?
Do we believe Chris Luxon?
Yeah. Well, at least Chris Luxon has said, hasn't said anything.
Yeah.
You can believe that.
Yeah.
I think it would be tough for somebody to say that and then go back on it in the current climate.
But if you are going to break a promise, the night of the election is a good time, because you've got 3 years for people to get over it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Winston Peters.
Although, Winston Peters' voters didn't get over it at the 2017 election.
Did he ever actually say he wouldn't work with Labour and then do it? I don't think he did.
No.
So it would be different.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Although even without him saying it and then going with Labour, he still lost 2/3 of his vote
from 2017 to
2020. Yeah.
So do you think that this is going to redound to Winston Peters' benefit, hopefully Chris Hipkins, that's what Chris Hipkins is doing it for, but do you think it's going to?
I think it just benefits Winston Peters. It gives him more airtime, right?
They're talking about him again.
Yeah, again.
Yeah.
And the thing with Winston Peters, he's a minor party leader. He doesn't need a broad support.
No.
He just needs a motivated
5%.
Yeah.
So it's always much easier for him in that respect.
Yeah, so why don't we move on to the winners and losers? Because because of this story, I've put forward as my winner, Winston Peters. Because he hasn't announced policy, he hasn't done anything, but he's back in the news again. And like you say, Maryanne, everyone's talking about him, and he's just sitting back and his numbers are going up.
He's
because
just being Winston Peters?
Yeah, he's just being Winston, yeah. So that's my nomination for the winner of the week. Maryanne, how about you?
I'm going to put India out there for...
Which party are they serving?
This is a little bit sideways.
No,
but, just a slight break from New Zealand politics, but it is, broadly. They landed on the moon.
That's worth celebrating.
After crashing in 2019, so they'll be happy. And it just happened to come days after Russia's, Luna 25 was going for the same territory near the poles, which apparently is a special thing, because then there might be stuff they can find out because there's ice down there. Don't know if they found out anything in the last few days, but they did it right after Russia crashed, and their attempt in 2019 failed. So there's a little bit of they've
and no
achieved
one's been
something
to the
they haven't
moon.
before.
Yeah, no one's landed on the moon for years. So well done.
Anyway.
Yeah. Marcus, what about you, mate?
So my winner is the National Party coffers. Since 2021, that came out last week, that the National Party has collected over $8 million in donations.
Wow.
ACT is second with over $4 million. Labour is just over $1 million. Wow. Although, in response to these numbers, you had former Prime Minister Helen Clark come out and rally the Labour Party faithful to donate, and I think they got $400,000 out of that, so they're doing better.
Yeah.
So apparently it's unprecedented, the gap between the leading party, National, and the others.
Well, that's more than the next two combined, right?
I think it's more than all of them combined, maybe.
Yeah.
And it was interesting that might be not a cause of National Party success, but if they are successful. But they were saying that the money tends to follow where the people think the election's going to go.
Okay.
So on
So it's
that
a predictor
barometer,
of
that, because the idea is you're potentially
backing the winner.
Yeah,
right?
you buy backing the winner, and you're
buying friends with government.
So
if
anyway,
we want to be cynical about it.
Exactly. So National Party, I think, is the winner with that piece of news.
What about losers, Marcus?
So my loser of the week is David Seymour.
Yeah.
We had the Guy Fawkes joke that we talked about last time on this podcast. We also had him getting embroiled in a discussion on whether or not Nelson Mandela, who's been dead for a few years,
of all people, Nelson Mandela
would be voting for ACT Party or not. He should be focusing more on the live voters who can actually vote for him.
Live people who can vote.
Who will actually endorse him. Yeah.
He's not running for local government in Chicago. He does. So the question is he becoming a bit sloppy? You know, he's often got a very good...
He's quite sharp usually,
He's funny, cuts through. Is he getting a bit sloppy? Maybe a little bit cocky.
Yeah.
Maybe he's just tired in. So, I'd say the loser, maybe just a wake up for David Seymour. What about you, Maryanne? Do you have a loser?
Yeah, sort of former ACT Party candidate, Elaine Naidoo-France, but taking this a different direction. Because I actually don't think that the way she had to step down was cool. I think that situation highlighted something that we all lose in. The reason that she stepped down was because it was reported that she had compared vaccine mandates to the Holocaust in Germany. First of all, that wasn't correct when you read her actual comments, which were a couple years ago on LinkedIn. She was comparing the mandates to what happened in Germany in the 30s, where they segregated society and some people lost their ability to make a living, and then asked, when are we going to see concentration camps here? So she made the mistake of bringing the Holocaust into a conversation. And if you're going to go there, you kind of, need to not have another landmine under that, which is the mandates. So the reason I think we're all losers is because still you cannot have an opinion about the mandates that's negative and still
run for public office.
And my problem with that is we really should be asking questions around that because it wasn't no big deal. There are people in healthcare who are still mandated out of their job, not by the government, but by our healthcare system, and we're short of healthcare workers. So I know a very experienced theater nurse who's been on a dairy farm for the last couple of years. How many people have we lost because they are mandating something that doesn't stop spread, which is the reason that healthcare workers are mandated to take certain vaccines. This one doesn't. We need healthcare workers. They're not on the job. You've got people who are coerced into things that they didn't want to do, who are not happy about it. Should we have gone there? That conversation can't be had because people don't want to end up like Elaine. And I really think that's unfortunate.
And even more widely outside the issue that she was speaking of is, once again, this is another reason why any normal person with things that they've said on social media wouldn't want to get into politics. One comment from 2 years ago. And that's it.
We should be able to have
it's on
discussions.
LinkedIn. It's not even on one of the
popular ones.
One of the fiery ones, you know, it's not like it's on Twitter or something like that. But I think you're right. Everyone loses out when the public square shrinks like that, and you can't even ask, is this a good idea? Are these the sort of people that we want to be? Where we separate our society out like this into people who've taken some medication and people who haven't.
And just the idea that, because there's some people who do have loopy ideas, I think questioning mandates is not loopy at all. Like that definitely should be. Some of the more fringe things, just because somebody's got a crazy idea about one thing, do we really want to not listen to anything else they've got to say? I think there's a broader conversation around that, just for people not even in government. where if you say one thing that sounds a little bit crazy, you have to disagree with everything else they believe.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not a very balanced, wise way to approach debate about things. It's not debate.
Yeah,
but it's much easier, Maryanne, because you don't have to
simple.
think.
Yeah,
exactly.
You just say, I don't like that one thing you said. Goodbye.
Everything else you say.
That's right.
What about you, Jace? Who's your loser?
So I haven't thought of a loser.
Oh, you're too positive.
I'm too positive.
Wow.
Yeah. But I am inclined to agree with you, Maryanne. Yeah. Sorry.
Because everybody,
Marcus.
I mean,
everyone,
if you're going to pick one,
it has to be everyone.
Someone who's everyone. Yeah.
Everyone is.
David Seymour.
Yeah,
Okay.
But he also loses because of
that's
the
true.
shallowness of the debate that we were able to have, or the lack of debate.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So if we go to the generally good egg, it's been really hard for us to come up with a generally good egg, because these are not nominations for like slick political maneuvers or clever ways of doing things, but they're kind of like just people who are generally good people.
Yeah, which I mean, I'm sure there are lots out there who are,
Yes.
but they're not being reported on.
Well, and that's the thing,
they don't
isn't
make
it?
headlines.
Good
we
news
don't know
doesn't
about
make,
them.
good news doesn't sell clicks. So it's really hard. The closest I think we got was the announcement about the Prime Minister working from hospital while his daughter gets treatment for a blood condition, and that's laudable, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's the closest. So good on him for that. Well done for being a dad.
Yeah, and we hope that his child gets better very quickly.
Exactly. So that brings us to the week ahead. What do we want to see coming up, Maryanne?
Yeah, you've got a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know who's in trouble here, but the government and certain media outlets, it turns out documentaries were funded by the EECA, which is, you know.
So when the government...
What does it even stand for? Yeah.
When
so
the government
these are
funds
documentaries,
isn't that propaganda?
And it wasn't clearly signaled.
Yeah.
And so there's so many questions. And I think most of the articles have been around, we were saying that, you know, how can these media outlets ensure that it's, more transparency, that people know who's behind it. But why is a government department creating public service documentaries on something that there's no shortage? I mean, it's not like we don't hear about climate change and the government really has to put it on the radar. Who's doing this and why?
Yeah.
I mean, you're right, Maryanne. It's the
I'd
whole...
like to find out.
The whole... Well, insofar as it has been reported. So, again, where did this come from? This wasn't from the mainstream media reporting.
No,
it wasn't stuff going, by the way,
we're doing
this.
Or pointing the fingers at each other. No, this was a blog.
Yeah. An independent alternative media, right?
Yes.
Not mainstream media. Yeah.
Which has been picked up on some outlets. So the fact that the story was broken outside the mainstream media says something. But also, I think more broadly, it just ties into this lack of trust that people have in the media, the declining trust. So it was last year there was a study from AUT saying that trust in the mainstream media had declined by 8 percentage points over 2 years or something. Yeah. And part of that was because of the closeness between the government and media companies. Yeah. And this was the Public Interest Journalism Fund to keep media afloat during COVID, when revenue was down from advertising. Didn't include this sort of stuff.
No,
which will just...
That wasn't the government creating content. It was just saying, here's some money so you can. This is actually creating content.
Yeah. And I thought it was funny, some of the responses from TV1 was, we said that this was from the EECA.
Like that tells anybody anything.
Doesn't tell me anything
about where the money's come from or why you're doing it or why it needs to be out there in public conscience.
Yeah, and who? This is the other question. Who actually benefits from this?
Yeah.
Because we have plenty of sources of information on climate change, and there are documentaries aplenty. Why this topic now? Like somebody has to have the answer to that.
Yeah.
So the week ahead, hopefully, we'll find out more about
more
this.
Information.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to see.
Yeah, I think so. Oh, thanks, guys, for being on the podcast today.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the Maxim Institute podcast. If you'd like to hear more from us and keep up with the rest of our research and analysis of politics and policy in New Zealand, you can sign up on the homepage of our website to get our monthly forum email and invitations to future Maxim Institute events. You can search and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. From the team at Maxim, mā te wā. Goodbye for now.